I'm Kriti Mehta and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's start with a check of the top headlines this hour. Ukrainian, US and Russian officials to hold security talks in the UAE on Friday, the Kremlin confirms, following a meeting of top US negotiators with President Vladimir Putin in Moscow. US President Donald Trump withdraws invite for Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney to join his newly constituted Board of Peace for Gaza. TikTok announces it has established a majority American-owned joint venture to operate its US business, allowing the company to avoid a ban over its Chinese ownership. The commander of Iran's Revolutionary Guards warns Washington that the force had its finger on the trigger in the wake of mass protests, as US President Donald Trump said Tehran still appeared interested in talks. Colombia imposes a 30% tariff on about 20 Ecuadorian products and suspends electricity sales to its neighbor. The move follows Ecuador's own tariffs on Colombian imports, with Bogota saying the action is a trade correction, not a sanction. 3 people dead and 1 critically injured after a shooting in Lake Cargelligo in New South Wales in Australia. Police say the suspect fled by a vehicle and remains at large. Bangladesh says it will not travel to India for next month's T20 World Cup after cricket authorities reject its request to move matches to Sri Lanka. The Bangladesh Cricket Board says it wants to play the tour. Nominations for the Academy Awards are being revealed as the film industry waits to see which movies and performers make the final list. The Oscar ceremony will take place on March 15 in Los Angeles, hosted by comedian Conan O'Brien. And on to the top focus story now, viewers. Ukraine, Russia and the United States are all set to hold their first ever trilateral talks aimed at ending the war in Ukraine. President Volodymyr Zelenskyy says the meetings will take place in Abu Dhabi on Friday and Saturday, marking a significant diplomatic step after nearly 4 years of conflict. The announcement came after Zelenskyy met US President Donald Trump on the sidelines of the World Economic Forum in Davos. Zelenskyy described the talks as productive and substantive, saying security guarantees for Ukraine have been finalized and a post-war economic recovery deal is nearly ready. Trump also called the meeting good and reiterated his message to Russian President Vladimir Putin that the war must end. US envoy Steve Witkoff said negotiations are down to a single remaining issue and described it as solvable if all sides are committed. Talks will continue in Abu Dhabi through military-to-military working groups. Russia has not formally commented, but senior Kremlin officials, including presidential aide Yuri Yushakov and RDIF chief Kirill Dmitriev, attended earlier discussions, signaling Moscow's involvement as the diplomatic push intensifies. Matthew Wadham, who's author and journalist from Washington, joins me in this conversation. Matthew, thanks very much for joining me. Well, looks like a welcome progress in the peace deal between Ukraine and Russia. Do you think this might as well be one of the last meetings before peace arrives in Ukraine?
Well, maybe, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. They have been fighting for years now, and they have pretty entrenched disagreements with respect to who gets to hold the territory that Russia conquered. But the fact that they're meeting for the first three-way talks is excuse me, to end the war. This is a hopeful sign. So, maybe something positive will come out of it. But, don't get your hopes up is all I want to say.
All right. Do talk to us also about the venue UAE that has been chosen for the talks.
The UAE has been chosen? Well, United Arab Emirates, I think, is a moderate Arab state, and it probably is. I'll bet that it lobbied to be the location of the talks because the UAE, which includes Abu Dhabi, fancies itself as an emerging world leader. It's a wealthy place, and they're very ambitious in terms of development. They have lots of skyscrapers, and you're constantly bombarded on social media with videos inviting you to go live the good life in the United Arab Emirates, where they claim there's hardly any crime and things are good. So,
Matthew, what do
you
you
know,
think about the question of Donbass that remains a contentious point for both parties? I think that is the last pending issue that needs negotiation. What kind of moves or budgets can we expect from Putin in that regard, if at all?
well, Putin, I think, has been pretty clear that he wants to keep the Donbass region, and the Ukrainians, Zelenskyy, has been similarly insistent that they want it back. So, that is a major sticking point. Whether who's going to prevail in that situation, and I'm not sure how it's going to be resolved. It depends, I suppose, on which side is more desperate to get the war over with, and both are acting. And though both are growing weary of the war, and the populations of their countries, respectively, are also growing tired of the war, that doesn't mean that they're going to give up anytime soon. So, it's a matter of which side will wear down first, and surrender on the issue of who's going to keep territories that were conquered by Russia. Russia wants to keep them. Ukraine wants them back.
And the fact that even as it appears that one is quite near to peace, there are shellings that still continues. What is one to make out of those shellings from either party?
Well, the fact that they're continuing to fight a war, I don't know that it means anything in particular. It's just they don't think they still think that they can prevail, and they want to keep fighting until a truce is agreed upon. I don't think the fact that they're continuing to shell each other means that much, except that they expect the fighting to continue for some time to come. But that could change in a heartbeat if they have a diplomatic breakthrough at this meeting coming up at UAE. Though, as I was saying earlier, don't get your hopes up about that, because they've had a lot of high-level meetings, and very little has actually come out of them.
All right, Matthew, do stay on with me as we proceed. There's some more information now coming in. Viewers, US President Donald Trump has also withdrawn an invitation for Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney to join his newly created board of peace, escalating tension between the two leaders. In a post on his Truth Social platform, Trump said the board was formally rescinding its invitation for Canada to participate. Carney's government had already indicated it would not pay to join the self-styled body aimed at ending global conflicts. The move follows a sharp exchange at the World Economic Forum in Davos. Earlier this week, Carney warned of a rupture in the US-led rules-based global order, comments are widely seen as a rebuke of Trump's approach to global affairs. Trump responded by claiming Canada lives because of the United States, a remark Carney strongly rejected in a national address, saying Canada thrives because it is Canadian, while still acknowledging the close partnership between the two countries. Carney has since called on Canada to act as a democratic model amid what he described as a period of global democratic decline. Let's listen in to Carney's comments.
United States have built a remarkable partnership in the economy, in security, and in rich cultural exchange. But Canada doesn't live because of the United States. Canada thrives because we are Canadian.
All right, I invite Matthew to join us back into the discussion here. Matthew, it's clear that a conflict is brewing between the two leaders. Carney has raised a point about democracy in decline and the US-led world order led by a democratic, oldest democracy in the world is in sharp decline. How would you want to respond to that?
Let's say democracy isn't in very good shape in Canada either. Carney himself, the Prime Minister Carney, has authoritarian tendencies like his predecessor, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Remember, this is a country that when people across the nation protested against government policies, I think it was against the COVID-19 lockdowns, truckers had a big protest in Ottawa, the capital of Canada, and the Canadian government responded harshly by debanking them, by taking away their ability to have bank accounts, and by suspending the driver's licenses of truckers. And, you know, it's not, you know, you don't have unlimited free speech in Canada. Certainly America has its problems, but I don't think that Canada pretending that it's this beacon of democracy to be emulated is something to be taken very seriously. You know, Canada is not a bad country, but it certainly has less freedom than the United States. They don't have a First Amendment, so you don't have a right to say what you want. You can be censored by the government. They don't have a Second Amendment, so you don't have the right to protect yourself with firearms, as you do in the United States. Canada doesn't, there's a lot of freedoms that Canadians don't have. Now, you know, this ongoing hostility between President Trump and Canada actually caused, I would say it's Trump's fault that the Liberal Party, led by Prime Minister Carney, roared back into power because President Trump started bad-mouthing Canada and saying he wanted to take over the country and, you know, invade and, you know, putting down Canada. And, you know, Canadians took that seriously, and it led to a resurgence of Canadian nationalism that, and the conservative Canadian party leader, Pierre Poilievre, who looked like he was going to form a strong majority government, got wiped out in the election, and Carney, the Liberal Party leader, Carney, prevailed. So, you know, Donald Trump has a chip on his shoulder with respect to Canada, and he likes to attack Canada, and you know, Canadians don't like it, but that doesn't mean that Canada is a beacon of democratic hope for the world. I wouldn't say it is.
All right. What do you think about the invitation that has been taken back? Does that really mean anything anyway? 35 countries had committed to joining the board, but only 19 were attending the ceremony yesterday, and 60 were extended an invitation altogether.
Yeah, I think that Trump suddenly taking back the invitation to Canada to join his vaunted Board of Peace is, I think it's just Trump having a temper tantrum, and he has a lot of them. He just decided, you know, Carney, I guess, did something that pissed him off, and he decided to take back the invitation. Donald Trump is mercurial, and he responds, you know, often it responds impetuously and emotionally when to other people's behavior. So, you know, the fact that Canada has been disinvited to the Board of Peace, I don't know that on its own that fact really means very much.
All right, Matthew, thanks very much then for joining me in this discussion. Now moving ahead, viewers. We're now going to bring you news on the latest US TikTok deal. The deal to secure TikTok's future in the United States has been officially closed. The joint venture acquiring TikTok's US operations has been formally established, and it has also announced its leadership team. This marks the conclusion of a years-long effort to address national security concerns. The joint venture will be led by CEO Adam Presser, who previously worked on securing US user data for TikTok, and Chief Security Officer Will Ferrell, who managed privacy and security efforts. The board overseeing the venture includes Shu Chu, TikTok's US CEO Kenneth Glueck from Oracle, and representatives from Susquehanna International Group, Silver Lake, and Emirati-backed investment firm MGX. The deal transfers control of TikTok's US user data and operations to the joint venture, with Oracle overseeing data storage and content moderation. ByteDance will still retain a majority stake in the new venture while continuing to manage global aspects like e-commerce, advertising, and marketing. The new entity will retain TikTok's algorithm using US user data. Although the experience for US users is unlikely to change, the algorithm could shift under the new leadership. The deal also addresses US-China tension, with China yet to officially comment on it. All right, joining me now in this discussion is Andrew K.P. Leong. He's a China strategist and joins us from Hong Kong. Mr. Leong, thanks very much for joining us in this discussion. No comment has come in from China, but is one to believe that the deal seems like a win-win for both ByteDance and the US?
Well, it's a testimony to the skill and strategy of the TikTok top management in securing this deal, which preserves the United States concern about data security and also the desire to share the spoils, as it were, of this very popular TikTok platform, because it commands a very high growing following amongst President Trump's supporters, especially the young people. And so there is a tsunami of pushback initially against the TikTok, wanting it to be almost nationalized by the United States, and then Trump is threatening all sorts of things. And for TikTok to be able to secure this deal, ensuring that the TikTok parent company, even though it's a minority, but it still retains the highest shares amongst the new TikTok board, and also the TikTok team of top administrators still remain holding a leading position in the TikTok board and management, and also preserving its algorithms outside the United States, because a huge market outside the United States globally across the board. Across the group, and then preserving the dominance of the big dance global company in the world, while carving up a slice of the profits for the TikTok company. So I think it's a very strong testimony to the skill of the TikTok team to be able to negotiate all these geopolitical, national, and various psychological concerns, and to be able to secure this deal.
Right, now Trump has also welcomed the deal, but one must not forget that he tried very hard to ban TikTok in the US since 2020. Now him welcoming the deal and thanking Xi Jinping. What does this really have to talk about the relation that could emerge between these two countries?
Of course, this would be held up as a good sign and olive branch by President Trump, who is a past master to taking advantage of any kind of leverage to secure his desired results. What he wants is to stabilize the relationship with China and with President Xi, while maximizing his gains across the world, not least in geopolitics, not least in even global governance. Witness the latest strategy of the so-called Board of Peace. Now it's being signed up by 35 countries across the globe. So I think that hoping that it will someday even replace the role of the United Nations. So I think that Trump is showing that his ability to seize the global agenda, all the commanding heights, and maximize Americans' hegemonic power to secure these gains while managing to create the kind of narrative which commands considerable following amongst a lot of countries and peoples across the globe.
All right, Mr. Leong, thanks very much then for joining me in this discussion with your perspective. Moving ahead, viewers, US President Donald Trump has explained the visible bruise on his left hand, linking it to his high intake of aspirin. Speaking to reporters on Air Force One, Trump has said that the bruise appeared after he accidentally bumped a table at the World Economic Forum in Davos. Trump has explained that his aspirin dosage makes him more prone to bruising. Moreover, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt has also clarified that the bruise resulted from Trump hitting his hand on the corner of a signing table during his Board of Peace announcement. Experts have reportedly confirmed that aspirin could have contributed to the bruising. Earlier this month, Trump revealed in an interview that he takes a higher than recommended dose of aspirin to maintain what he described as nice, thin blood for his heart. And now moving on, we will cover the news from Spain's tragic rail disaster. The death toll there has risen to 45 after 2 more bodies were recovered from the wreckage of a high-speed train involved in last weekend's collision. The crash, which occurred in Andalusia, has raised serious concerns about rail safety in Spain, the European Union's 4th largest economy. Spain declared 3 days of mourning after the accident, the deadliest rail disaster in over a decade. Meanwhile, the country is dealing with 2 additional incidents. In Catalonia, a train driver was killed after a commuter train struck a retaining wall, injuring 37 people. On Thursday, a third accident occurred in Murcia when a commuter train hit a crane, injuring 6. These accidents have intensified safety concerns, leading to a national strike called by unions over infrastructure and safety lapses. Viewers, that's all we have time for. Thanks for watching NewsX World. For all international news and updates.